The other day, I posted an any percent run of Quest for Glory 2, in which I spent 80% of it invisibly running across the desert sky, and then the game cuts to halfway through the ending sequence. So, what's going on? The speedrun tech actually starts before the run does. You launch the game, and then okay, so what's all that about? Quest for Glory 2 is a parser game, which means you enter commands into a parser, and the game tries to make sense of what you just wrote. But typing in commands takes time. The game will only allow about 10 key presses per second, which is time spent or wasted whenever you need to input anything. At the start of the game, you're sitting down in Kata's Tail Inn. The first thing we need to do is, naturally, to stand. 5 keystrokes is 0.5 seconds, plus the enter key for the final input makes 0.6. Once standing, we need to switch from walk to run, 4 keystrokes. Done quickly, you can do these inputs in about 1 second. That's a little too long though, so we're going to prepare these inputs ahead of time. The parser remembers your previous input. Anything you type will be stored inside of its memory. You can then quickly recall the last entry by pressing F3 or the spacebar key. This technique is used all over the place in various categories, but it is most commonly used at the very start. You can actually activate the parser several times during the game's startup sequence. This lets us prepare 3 inputs. We first input run. Even though we haven't started playing yet, this does toggle the running state, so we don't have to type it in-game at all. Next, we input cast open. This is the spell we'll be using to spellglide with later. Finally, we input stand as the very last prepared input, so that as soon as the first room has loaded, we can recall stand with spacebar and press enter. But wait, we're inputting stand as the last input so that we can recall it. How can we also recall cast open later? Well, we don't. But the parser actually saves the last noun that you used. Names of items and names of spells are stored in a sort of short-term memory. That was my budgie trying to ruin the recording. This means that once a noun is stored, next time you want to use it, you can just skip using the noun and instead type it. This means that once we prepare the spell for casting later, we just have to cast it instead of cast open, saving us 2 keystrokes. The things we do for speed. Whew, okay, all of that is out of the way, and now it's time to start talking about the other thing you have to do before you start the run. Aren't you glad you clicked on this video? Don't worry, these go faster after a while. No, they don't. Since the game only allows for 10 key presses every second, we need to optimize where and when we type in any commands or use any hotkeys. The answer is to do them during screen transitions. Did you miss it? On some screen transitions, the game is still reading input from your keyboard. You can begin typing as soon as a room transition starts, and then, as soon as you reach the other side, your inputs have already been processed and they will output much faster. This is used constantly throughout the no major skips route, and never in any percent. Yeah, we don't use this trick to actually type anything, but this input buffer also works on hotkeys, and there are 2 we need to use. The F6 key opens the game detail menu. We want to set the game to low detail. It runs a bit faster in some cases. The F4 key opens the difficulty menu. Setting this to easiest has a lot more effects in the normal categories, but we only need it to reduce random monster spawns in the desert. This is paramount for this run. We wait for the 4th rocks before we begin the countdown. 5! And that's it! We are now ready to start the run. For this category, choice of character doesn't matter. So long as you have at least 5 points in magic, you will spawn with the required spell. I also added some points into luck. It doesn't do anything in this run, but I felt like I needed some. You'll notice that the timer is already counting down. This countdown timer tells me exactly when I need to start the game, so that I can hit a specific frame rule for sleeping to nightfall. And I, Kane, intend to be the first speedrun YouTube content monkey to not talk about frame rules or buses, so I'm just going to move on. The run starts, and the starting inputs sound like this. Good, the easy part of the run is over. Our first step to becoming a hero is, of course, to go to sleep. In Quest for Glory, bedtech just refers to how and why you advance time. Some events happen only at night, others don't happen until the passing of several days. For the any % run, the most relevant part is that traveling across the desert is faster at night for reasons I don't really understand. So, I go to bed, wake up at night, and 6 seconds of the run has elapsed. This screen is dumb. First, it resets your movement speed back to walking pace. Then, before you get control of your character, Abdallah bin Tahir here interrupts your train of thought with a giant text box that prevents you from typing anything, like say for example, run! You have to click south, mash away his greeting, type run, then insert cast it, and hopefully do all of that without losing any time. And once you're done, you are rewarded with the hardest single input in adventure game history. Sorry about that, I needed a thumbnail for my YouTube video. Welcome to Reset Point. Future runners of this category will forever spend most of their time right here. So what are we trying to do, and why is it so hard? There is a concept in Sierra games called turning isn't walking. It is, in brief, a way to keep moving even in the middle of animations that would ordinarily stop you in your tracks. Like the spell called Open. Normally casting Open would halt any previous movement because otherwise the animation would look rather silly. However, it only stops your movement if you are already walking. If you cast the spell while turning around, you are not technically walking, so the stop script ignores you. Hi bird. Thus, you can begin turning around, cast the spell, finish your turn, and then... With this oversight, we can do some pretty fun stuff. The lava lake is infamous among Quest for Glory speedrunners, most of whom have lost runs here at one point or another. This tiny walkway is surrounded by what's supposed to be lava, but if you look at the room area using debug tools, you can see that the walkway is really surrounded by this yellow region. This region is a script trigger, which says, if the hero enters the region, play ouch 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 dot animation, and then put the hero back where he came from. However, only one script can be active at any given time. If there is ever already a script going, say because you're in the middle of casting the Open spell, this is what spell gliding can give us. So why are we trying to spell glide in the desert? The desert is our main nemesis in this route. For the wrong warp to work, which we'll get to soon, we need to cross 120 desert screens. Running across it normally is not exactly slow, but we can do better. If you're in the sky, bear with me for a moment, you could hide the player sprite above the top of the screen. This tells the game not to draw it, which saves resources. Everything runs faster, including the player character. We can't get up there normally. If you try walking up, you engage a script which shows a fancy animation of the hero walking across the dunes. But that's a script region like any other, and we can indeed spell glide right over it. We can now hide the sprite and run left at full speed. This tech is called skywalking because look at it. Spell gliding itself is not hard to do, but doing it fast. Remember when I said that the game only reads your keyboard inputs about 10 times every second? That's the limit for keyboard input. There is no way to make any direction change or parser input happen faster than this. The time between a movement command and a parser input is always 0.1 second. Spell gliding is as simple as pressing a direction key and then instantly opening the parser to cast the spell. But at higher game speeds, you turn around faster and faster, and at the highest speeds, if you press a direction key, you will always fully turn around before you are able to open the parser to type cast open. You have to slow the game down 3 times in order to be able to do this with keyboard input only. We don't want to do that. Fortunately, the mouse cursor is not bound by your puny laws of physics. It can be read 50 times a second and oh Jesus balls, help! Thus, at even faster game speeds, if you click a keyboard input to open the parser and then, before the parser opens in 0.1 seconds, you click the mouse button to move, the mouse pulls first, the turnaround begins, and then the keyboard input is processed. This can be made consistent on the second fastest speed. So, what then are the problems, plural, for they are myriad, with fastest? 1. When you enter reset point, you have only 7 frames to make an input. The keyboard is checked every 6 frames. But that's not the full story, because the game doesn't check how long it's been since you pressed a key and then counts up. It pulls the keyboard every 10th of a second on the 10th of a second. So anytime you press a button, the input is queued, waiting for the first available bus. God damn it, I'm talking about buses now. So your button queuing at the bus stop could leave in 1 frame or more. And if you think you can find a consistent setup for it on the previous screens, did I sync it? Yes. Okay, so now the parser should be exactly synced. They even exit on the same frame. Yeah, cursor changes on the same frame. This is perfect. So the conditions are the same. First one's ahead by a little bit. That's not uncommon. It's weird to see that in 2 different world record videos, but yeah, it's a bit ahead. And then the load happens about here. How much further? 1, 2... So the right one has to go 3 frames further in order to reach the same screen. And first one can cast here on 443. Oh my god. 443 on the right is still on the loading cursor. It hasn't unlocked the parser yet, so we can't use this frame to cast it. It's gonna have to wait until 449? I hate this game. Same conditions and it just doesn't matter. It's random, which is really fun for what comes next. 2. When you enter reset point, the mouse cursor does what it always does in Quest for Glory 2 when you enter a new screen. It repositions to the bottom right corner, which was a design decision made immediately following a Gellerfield malfunction. This means that in order to click the top left region, you have to quickly move the mouse from the bottom right to the top left without going high enough to click on the menu. And you have to click the mouse button very perfectly while you're doing this. How perfectly? 3. How long do you think the character remains in a turning around state when you're playing the game on the fastest speed setting? One frame. So what you have is a trick that requires moving the mouse across the screen in about 1/10 of a second, relies on pressing a keyboard input to begin opening the parser, and then 1 to 5 frames later, it's random, perform a frame perfect input. Out of every 20 runs of mine that made it to reset point, 19 died so that 1 could survive. And after all that, once you finally get the trick to work, the run could still come down to monster RNG. That's the frame perfect spell glide where the frame is random. It's one of the hardest techniques in adventure game speedrunning. Let's talk about the wrong warp! Yay! I did 9 takes of that. Moving about the game world is an exercise in lies. You're not truly going from the apothecary's shop to Fountain Plaza South. You are warping from room 130 to room 315. Every single screen has a room number associated with it. The guild hall, the desert oasis, even cutscenes. The desert is different. Apart from a few special locations, the entire desert is actually just one screen, and all of the rocks and plants and doodads are just procedurally generated based on an internal value of coordinate. Here, I'll show you. I made this in Paint. Can you tell, viewer? We are at Shapir Overlook, which has an internal code of 1300. Directly north is the stables. It's not part of the desert, so it has the unique room ID of 290. If you move around the desert, this internal code changes. If you go left, it subtracts by 1. If you go right, it adds by 1. If you go south, though, it adds a full 1000 to the internal code. So, horizontal movement adds or subtracts 1. Vertical movement adds or subtracts 1000. But what happens if you cheat and keep going north? That took us from 1302 to 302. That makes sense, we're subtracting 1000. And there are some more mountains here, so I'll just teleport again. Script 698? Wait, what just happened? Okay, the present desert room is 302. Going north subtracts 1000 from 302, which gives us minus 698. The game doesn't know what to do with negative room numbers, so it just replaces the number with its positive counterpart. And then it says, oh, you're trying to go to room 698. Let me help you with that. It crashes because it's trying to load a room that doesn't exist. But there are plenty of rooms that do. 120 screens west from Shapir is Desert Room 1180. Subtract to make it 180, subtract again to make it Room 820, which is part of the ending cutscene. So, how do we get up here without cheats? This is Merv the Griffin, and if you get that reference, I hope bingo went well today. Merv plays no part in the current route, but he is how we found this bug in the first place. He's a friendly griffin who will talk to you for some humorous dialogue, and he's now good and pissed off, and he will be chasing us forever. For safety, let's hug the mountainside all the way to the wrong warp screen, where, if we go into the open desert, if you kill Merv on a normal desert screen, a special animation plays of Merv plunging to the ground and our hero flexing to the camera. At this point, you're bugged. Nobody ever noticed because walking across the dunes fixes the bug. But if you spell glide and leave the screen by exiting from the top, no clip. I bet you never thought that killing the friendly griffin could actually help you beat the game, huh? But killing Merv is hard and random because your accuracy is for shit as a low-level character, and Merv will randomly fly off and refuse to fight you. This, being the any % route, would really suck, and only fools and madmen would even run it this way. So instead, we turn to our old friend, the spell glide. If you spell glide across the edge of the screen, the exit script is halted until you release the button, and once you do, whee! The game tries to catch up, shuffling screens until it finds you, but that's just east-west movement. By positioning yourself on the edge of the screen, you can spell glide diagonally up into the void. The script sees that you are also above the screen, and it pushes you north as well as west. Do that one more time, and... It's actually hard to get a consistent number of horizontal glides this way. You have to wait to finish casting until the exact right moment, but with some practice and a few resets, we can get it done. For a final time of 1 minute and 11 seconds. The Quest for Glory 2 Any% speedrun is a complicated mess of inputs, clunky room scripts, run-killing randomness, and 50 seconds of boring desert screens that you hope stay boring because the alternative is worse. But I do have one confession to make. Most of the footage I've been showing you hasn't been from my 111. I'm getting better. Especially from the in to the exit, I get to reset point a lot more often now. But I haven't seen the final glides for a while. I'll probably practice them after this. Go! Frame rule? Ooh, that's close. That's what we like to see. Go, go! Yes! Okay, actually that's perfect. That's flawless. I've got a split coming up. I can check if this really is faster. That felt quick. Okay, minus 0.2. Yeah, let's not screw this one up. For as hard as they are, the ending glides are deterministic, but tell that to my fingers when I'm on world record pace. Okay, the fourth boulder sequence is coming up now. Deep breath. Got it! Got it! Got it! That's it! That's game. That's it. It's done. It's over. I don't have to worry about this category anymore. No, that's, yeah. 109 is impossible. 109 is literally impossible with current strats, so first to 110, and it's a low 110, you know what, I'll take that. This is my record now. I don't even have to look at this anymore. Attempts counter in the 900s. Was it worth it? Yes. This is why we speedrun. It's just accomplishing a goal that's really hard, even if it takes way too long sometimes. And then sitting back at the end of it, knowing that you've done something very difficult. And then you get to post it to Discord and get upwards of 10 likes, so that'll be nice. Okay, I'm going to stop talking, I think, and just let the ending credits play out, for the most part. You can go, I dismiss you. Good night. I will again point out that canonically you got licked by the Emir. That is all. Right now, no one has done this faster. That's the case with every world record. No matter how flimsy they are, no matter how short of a term they have, no one at this time has done this faster. Someone will beat this in the future. Someone always does. And when that happens, I'll try not to feel too bad about it. It doesn't mean that this run is bad. It just means that their run is awesome. That's it. Have a great night.